Good evening, Trump's family. Welcome back to my channel. Have a nice weekend, everyone, and God bless you. Thank you for always watching and subscribing to the channel. Alright, without further ado, let's get into the news. Right now, we're going to talk about something very interesting: Trump Lake in 2024. I picture on the Santis smiling. Arizona Republic. So there are other articles as well. Lake dismisses Trump running mate rumors. So, you look, ladies and gentlemen, she's at Mar-a-Lago right now, and she's visiting for President Donald Trump. It is possible that they're talking about Kari Lake as a future candidate for like a position in his cabinet in 24. If Trump and Trump Republicans find a way to replace Mitch McConnell, who lost the Senate, it was McConnell who lost the Senate 2 years ago in Arizona and Georgia. It wasn't Trump. Okay, you had outgoing senators like Jeff Flake, and Kelly LaFleur. And Perdue. These were basically never Trump was. Jeff Flake was openly hostile towards Trump, says McCain. So you have outgoing Arizona senators who despise Trump, who happen to be they're all Republican apparently. But they weren't. Trump wasn't the right Republican, which is why I love him, which is why I love Trump, because he's not really a good old boy, old school, never-ending counterinsurgency conflict militant Republican. He's not a Bush, Cheney and Rumsfeld Lincoln Project Republican who, by the way, the Lincoln Project should have been cancelled a long time ago. They were against marriage equality. And they were the ones behind the terrible foreign policy we saw 20 years ago and today also. So I mean, they've never been right about anything. And you have the Bush, Cheney and Rumsfeld, Lincoln Republican, Lincoln Project people voting alongside Bernie Sanders, AOC and Elizabeth Warren. Think about that for a second. If you're a morally superior, highly educated liberal Democrat, and you're laughing at Kari Lake being vice president. I think that Ron DeSantis would make a much better vice president, but are there other candidates to Tim Scott make an amazing vice president? There are other candidates. But she's at Mar-a-Lago now. She's at Mar-a-Lago. There have already been articles, I gave you one in the Arizona Republic, talking about her as potential vice president in 24. Getting back to Trump and him running in 24. They're now underestimating him. They're now calling him a loser, even though he defeated Clinton. If Trump was a loser, what's Mitt Romney? What's Paul Ryan? Okay. Republicans should thank God for Donald Trump. You will see the greatest hits of all the failed Republican losers. Mitt Romney, Chris Christie, Ted Cruz. I mean, I like Ted Cruz's okay, but he's a better Lindsey Graham. He's a better version of Lindsey Graham. And then you have Liz Cheney, who voted alongside Trump 92% of the time. Okay. So please go ahead. It's like the greatest hits of the actual losers. But I don't put Ted Cruz in that category, actually. But just he's there. Within that compilation of Republicans who couldn't have defeated Clinton. It's Republicans should thank God for Donald Trump. You underestimate Trump at your own peril. Okay, the special counsel's a joke, so it really doesn't matter who is running the special counsel. Nobody cares anymore. Democrats are actually demoralized. They know we're not going to indict Trump. If they ever do, then Trump replied, Publicans, when Trump Republicans completely take over, we'll go after and indict Biden, and Biden will actually lose in a court of law. If he asked to, if all the money flow in the transactions, the 150 suspicious activity reports are shown to a jury. And it's like even a DC jury, you can see the money flow with Trump, Clinton, Comey and Clinton already set the precedent. There was already a precedent set with top secret intelligence on servers, and no reasonable prosecutor would indict, then they're not gonna find a reasonable prosecutor to convict or able to convict even with a DC jury because he's a former president. He didn't steal them. He was given access to them. He had the highest classification for 4 years. He can declassify anything. They cannot prove he didn't declassify everything that he took at Mar-a-Lago. You'd have to prove without a shadow of a doubt. He didn't declassify these documents. It's not Trump who has to prove that he declassified them. It's the government that has to prove that a former president didn't declassify the documents. Then you have Bill Clinton, also as a precedent in the Bush administration. Okay, there were other administrations that also, if you want to say, mishandled classified data. I mean, Clinton was siphoning classified data onto unsecured servers outside of the US government. Now, for those of you who are discouraged about the midterms, rightly so, for no question, this is a huge bright spot for the future of our nation. Undeniably, the parallel economy, of course, is a holistic term that denotes the rising up of alternative businesses, structures, and institutions that together provide a social ecology, wherein the eternal values of faith, family, and freedom can flourish. And in terms of the current state of the situation, the parallel polis is absolutely booming as we speak. One sign that the parallel economy is growing is the fact that it's gone mainstream. Go ahead and Google parallel economy, and you'll see article after article after article being written about it in finance and technology circles. And they all recognize that it all more or less began with the advent of cancel culture, particularly with the banning of President Trump from Twitter and Facebook, along with the banning of Parler from AWS and the Apple App Store and Google Play Store, as well as all the banning of prominent conservatives from Shopify and PayPal and the like. That was the catalyst for a massive exodus of users away from traditional big tech, and to a slew of investors pumping money into new tech like Rumble. True social, with an entire parallel economy emerging around that, when all is said and done. 2020 was perhaps the official declaration of independence by conservatives from the mainstream economy. And that's because really, in the end of the two events that effectively woke-defied virtually all major corporations in the nation, first the race riots in the aftermath of the whole George Floyd incident and the Democrat-led vaccine mandates that corporations were more than willing to impose on their employees throughout the nation, with hundreds of thousands if not millions of people losing their jobs. And as a result, cancelled culture went mainstream. Now everyone knew at least someone who had been cancelled in the good, that's nice and love. And the potential for a parallel economy just absolutely skyrocketed, and investors took notice. Now, virtually any product or service today can be found with a The Daily Wire is pouring $100 million as we speak into kids' entertainment in direct response to Disney going full-blown. You could check out on Disney losing upwards of $50 billion in market value ever since they came out against the parental rights law in Florida with Ron DeSantis. The billionaire Peter Thiel is pumping a massive amount of funds into the parallel economy. He's got a fintech company called 28. That unabashedly affirms the biological reality of what it means to be a woman. And he's the chief investor in Rumble, which is just partnered with a brand new payment processor company called, conveniently enough, Parallel Economy, right? I think Dan Von Gino's behind that. And together, they're in the works of building actually their own for internet server, which is very common. I've met several patriots who are building their own servers that are in effect becoming totally council-proof. But obviously, the king of them all, the single most significant player in the building of a parallel economy, is none other than the one and only Elon Musk. I mean, who would have ever imagined that Twitter, the single biggest instant messaging platform on the planet? Who would have ever imagined that platform that started all of this with the banning of President Trump? Who would have ever believed that that platform would end up becoming the very front lines of the very parallel economy it originally ignited? First and foremost, Musk is completely transforming Twitter. He's bringing long and short-form video into the mix to compete with TikTok and YouTube. He's creating an internal payment processing system to create a full-blown e-commerce system at Parallel Amazon, all completely totally emancipated from woke, Inc. And now, the advertising possibilities for a parallel economy are astronomical. You may have heard well. We did a video on this a couple of weeks back. Musk tweeted out an announcement that Twitter had a massive drop in revenue. And he was threatening to name and shame the advertisers who were succumbing to the pressure of the far-left boycotts so that we can counter-boycott them. And this is absolutely huge precisely because of how it ties in with this burgeoning parallel economy. And that's because boycotts are only one side of the equation, aren't they? What's the other side of the equation in consumer politics? You guys know this if you're a regular to this channel, right? Boycotts. So while boycotts refuse to purchase from companies that offend our political values, boycotts are intentional purchases from companies that support our political values. And so what Musk is doing here is he's setting the stage for perhaps the biggest boycott opportunity we've ever seen. At the very least, pro-free speech, pro-traditional value companies are going to be advertising on Twitter, will be advertising on Twitter, regardless of what Musk does, right? And if he does release the names of those companies to boycott, that we're gonna see potential parallel companies fall in line right along with that. So the parallel economy is booming like never before. And it's only gonna get bigger. Especially as corporations continue to go woke, they're going to inevitably, of course, go broke, and that guarantees that the parallel economy is nothing less than the mainstream economy of tomorrow. Yeah. I'm just thinking of the FTX. The FTX scandal is gigantic. So that might take a little time to explain as well. So I don't know how much FTX questions we have. So I might just try to wrap that all up into one. So let's start. Let's start with the first one. And the first one. The answer is it's blatant. Katie Hobbs is stealing this E. Katie Hobbs is counting her opponent's votes. That's what's happening. And the fact that we have a North Korean establishment media telling us there's nothing to see here, the very same media that denies their own left-wing liberal bias, suggests this is an outrage that will tarnish Arizona elections and American elections from here on and on. And on. And unless and unfortunately, again, we have no one to blame bars, but ourselves, because Republicans wrote these rules. They wrote the rules. And Ducey signed it into law. And everyone was talking about how bad, although everybody on the left was talking about how bad the election reform law was and how discriminatory it was, like Georgia and so forth. But now we're finding out they have all kinds of mail-in ballot prerogatives that states like Florida, North Carolina, Texas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, West Virginia, Ohio, Iowa would never even touch. So what we're seeing an election getting stolen right now. Katie Hobbs is slow-walking this purposely. The Maricopa County officials, they're the Mr. Rogers. That Rich Barris has been calling them, saying there's nothing to see here. Everything's going well. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. That which we found out, by the way, those guys were actively involved in an anti-MAGA campaign back in 2021. It's getting stolen right in front of our very eyes. It's 2020 all over again. And you would have thought that Republican leadership would have had a counter game plan for this, including Katie Hobbs, including Sir Kari Lake herself. And Blake Masters. I mean, I know. They can't do everything, but and Trump, as I find Trump a bit to blame here. He's been holding on is a lot of funds Save America PAC. I think he only spent about 20% Save America PAC. It's been holding on to this one's obviously for a presidential run that he's probably going to announce tomorrow night from Mar-a-Lago. But they did not have a game plan. So they seem to assume that election day turnout was going to be massive and overcome whatever shenanigans the Democrats pulled with the ballot harvesting. But it didn't seem to work. So that's what's going on there. And the reason why it's all I think the vote for Kari Lake is much bigger than Masters, cause she's always been leading beyond Masters' lead. We were hoping she would carry him over. So again, we'll have to see as things play out here. But the problem is, it's all Maricopa County. All the votes now are Maricopa counties. I understand what happens in Maricopa County happens in Arizona, right, because Maricopa County is by far the biggest county in the state. And so for 4 million or so. And if you're talking election day vote, those should overwhelmingly break for Kari. Alright, thanks for being here, folks. Please receive a big hug from all of us. Let me know down